Hello and welcome to Feminist Economics 101, a video series of the International Association for Feminist Economics, or IAFE. In this series, young scholars chat with senior scholars about what feminist economics is and how it contributes to the discipline and their fields of study. I am Maria Sandoval Guzman, a PhD candidate in economics at Curtin University in Australia. I am joining this interview from the traditional lands of the Noongar people, the First Nations custodians in Perth, Western Australia. Today I have the honor of interviewing Abena Oduro, President-elect of IAFE for 2021-2022. She is Associate Professor in the Department of Economics and Director of the Miriam Institute for Advanced Studies in Africa at the University of Ghana. She is also a member of the board of the Ghana Statistical Service and a commissioner of the National Development Planning Commission in Ghana. With a career spanning more than 3 decades, her research encompasses areas like the analysis of poverty and inequality, gender and assets, unpaid care work, and international trade policy. Her current research interests are in the areas of intra-household division of labor and soft skills and employment. Abena, thank you so much for being with us today. To start our questions and our conversation, can you tell us about what you do and how it relates to feminist economics?
Thank you. So I'm a lecturer in the Department of Economics at the University of Ghana. And as you also mentioned, I'm director of an institute at the University of Ghana. At the University of Ghana, unfortunately, the department doesn't have any courses on gender. And indeed, fortunately, because of a relationship we've developed with American University, 2 of our colleagues have participated in some training. So we are hoping to introduce at the master's level a course on gender and development. So as a result of that, my teaching, I don't teach any courses on gender and development or gender analysis, although I try as much as possible, particularly in my graduate teaching, to introduce a dimension of gender analysis in the teaching that I do. So it's mainly in my research work and in later years in some of the extension work that I've been doing that I am able to work on gender issues.
How do you think it has led you when we are reading about your research areas? Is there any one of them that maybe to follow up on the question that you see as more related to your gender research or that has inspired it more?
In terms of the research work that I'm doing?
Yeah, or your areas of research that you have done.
Yes. In particular, I've spent, I could say, the last 10 years working on issues of gender and assets. And I worked with a team of researchers from American University, Oxford University, and in Bangalore, and in Ecuador. And members of IAFE, Carmen Diana Dia, and Cheryl Dawson, Karen Groen, and Hema Swaminathan. And we collected individual level asset data. And we know that women's ownership of assets is important. We know it's important. Studies have shown that it's important for their children's well-being. Studies have shown that it's protective against intimate partner violence in some contexts. And studies have also shown that it's important for women's decision-making power. But you find that there are very few surveys that collect individual level data. Increasingly, we now have more and more surveys that collect that data. So in terms of contribution to the field, in the last 10 years, working with my colleagues, I think we've contributed greatly to the literature on women's asset ownership and women's wealth and why it is important. So that has taken up quite a bit of my research time in the last 10 years. And then more recently, looking at issues of intra-household distribution of wealth.
Yes. It sounds like it is a fantastic team, very international. And
Yes, indeed.
yes, and I think, yeah, like data is critical for good decision making. And the work that you're doing in collecting this data and doing this really important analysis on different aspects of people's lives is really important. And I think very reflective of IAFI.
Indeed, yes, yes.
So, talking about these areas of gender and economics, how do you see feminism and economics fitting together?
Okay. I believe that the focus of feminism is the well-being of all human beings and the well-being of all genders. And I find that feminism forces one to reflect carefully about how different population groups are affected by economic policy, both at the micro level and at the macro level in terms of microeconomic policy and macro policy, and even when we look at sector policies. And as I've worked increasingly in the area of gender analysis, I have found that a feminist approach forces one to question models. It forces one to look at the assumptions and to look at the conclusions. And I think it contributes to pushing, you could say, pushing the frontiers forward in terms of economic analysis because of the sort of questions that it asks. So I think that feminism and economics go neatly together. And indeed, I think feminism is important for economics.
Yes. So many important takeaways from what you just mentioned. I think that, yeah, it is really important to highlight how feminism really looks to improve the condition of everyone. And also I like saying how feminist economics pushes the boundaries and improves the discipline in a way like makes new questions. And I think it is really important. And those two things really, I feel like I want to make a note to use in my definition. I think we touched a bit upon this and about the work that you have done that like is tackling the big questions. Speaking about the International Association of Feminist Economics, how has it played in your career development? Because I think you have had a long career in IAFI and really important, and now you are the president elect. So, what role has the association played?
Well, you say I've had a long role in IAFI. I think there are many who've had many more years in IAFI than I have because I got introduced to IAFI in 2009. So I guess my experience shows that it is possible to be a member of IAFI, take part in the activities in IAFI, and within a short period of time, become president. So, so you could look at my experience that way. But yes, indeed, I became a member in 2009, and it was through my work with Carmen Diana and Karen Brun and Cheryl Doss and Hema Swaminathan. And they introduced me to IAFI. So I attended my first IAFI meeting in 2009. And I have found IAFI to be, especially the conferences, to be, for me at the time, an important area for learning, important for knowing about developments, important for, in terms of the questions that were being asked and the issues that were being raised. I have found the meetings important in that regard in terms of my career development, in terms of as I reflect and think, in terms of my own research and in terms of my teaching, how I can incorporate gender analysis into my teaching. And I found also, not only have I been associated with IAFI, I've also been associated with the journal, Feminist Economics. And I still find it an important resource for someone who is wanting to grow in the area of feminist economics. So I found it an important resource too. And then I've been privileged to be part of the editorial. So I'm an associate editor now. And that has also been a very good and important experience for me. So I would say that Ayafi has contributed tremendously. I mean, when I think now in Ghana, when they are thinking of feminist economists, the people do come to me. And I think it is because of the experience, what I've learned, my ability to apply it from participating in IFA events.
Yes, and I think it makes me think of the friendships that one establishes and the sort of the networks that seem really strong. I joined IAFI in 2018, I believe, as a young scholar. And I can see the sense of community and friendship. And I think I can see it in your description of your time at IAFI, but also about scholars in your country that come to you for this type of analysis. That it is just a community that is formed. And for the conferences, this time we will have the virtual conference. So I'm really looking forward to joining. I think it's going to be really nice to see and put some faces to the names and start establishing that type of international community for younger scholars as well. And from the journal, I agree, definitely feminist economics. Not only if you're doing feminist economics, but even if you're doing gender analysis in the economics sphere, I think feminist economics, the journal, is really part of the literature review. So many articles and important research that one can do further. So yeah, it has been an integral part of my literature reviews for the PhD. And I think talking now about the networks in the communities in IAFI, I'm thinking about this connection with more established expert scholars. And what advice would you give to young scholars who are at the beginning of their career? Or also, what advice would you give to your younger self? The big question.
Honestly, for the young scholars, I would say that membership of IAFE is important. We've just talked about networking, the ability to share ideas, exchange ideas, and the ability to debate. And at least during the time of the conference, you have the opportunity to do that. But right now, also within IAFE, we've got the young scholars. Young scholars have come together. And they are having reading groups, and I think something is going to be inaugurated. I've just read the email in the next couple of weeks. So I think that's such a critically important activity. And I'm sorry. It's an important activity of IAFE. It's very new, very recent. And indeed, it came up from the young scholars themselves. And so I would say to all who want to be able to grow and develop as feminist economics that they take advantage of all the different resources that IAFE has to offer in terms of the conference and then in terms of this membership group of young scholars. And the mentoring program also that is being introduced and I think is going to be outdoored in the next couple of weeks. It's a great opportunity to learn from others who've gone ahead in the in the world of academia and in the world of policymaking and advocacy. So that would be my advice.
Yes, I think you have covered for anyone who watches this video. Part of the things that we want to show to people is just for the Young Scholars Committee, which is actually I am part of that committee, and it's a very international group as well. And this opportunity of interviewing senior scholars is part of that connection. And yeah, the reading group that you mentioned that we have ongoing and the mentoring group. So I'm really looking forward to those. And it's just a vibrant community. It's really nice. And I think from that, is there any advice that you would give to your younger self?
Or to my younger self? I think back Well, I guess it's something that as academics, researchers, we should always do. Okay, advice that I'd give to my younger self. Sometimes I'd ask questions and think they were not relevant. But I think if we have questions, we should follow them through, because you don't know where the answer would take you. I hope I'm making sense there.
Yes.
Yeah. Because sometimes I think back now, and that there were questionings that I had that I didn't follow through. And I look back now and I think maybe I should have pursued. And it's all part of the critiquing, the reflection, the thinking, and then making progress. So I think it is important that we do that.
Yes, that is a really useful scientific answer. I think, yeah, like making questions that at the beginning you don't know, like, oh, where is it going? Seems part of the scientific inquiry. So I think it is very relatable and also very reassuring, especially for PhD students or early career researchers, that we don't have all the answers yet.
Yeah. But sometimes you might even think, is this a useful question to ask? And I think so far as the question emerges through your reflection, don't back down. Pursue it and see where it will take you.
That is wonderful advice, very timely. And yeah, like these were part of like a series of questions to structure a conversation and introduce people. I don't know if there is anything that we haven't covered that you would like to cover or talk
about. Not really. I think we've had a good broad brush.
Yes, it's a good introduction of Feminist Economics 101, and we ended up tackling the big questions and talking about why big questions are important. So I think it is wonderful. Abena, thank you so much for this interview and the insights about feminist economics and how it can contribute to the discipline, how we can keep contributing to feminist economics, but also, like you said, how feminist economics can push the boundaries of economics and fundamentally just help improve the lives of people and in a broader sense make a positive difference in the world. For some final remarks, although you already did a great job at covering some of our initiatives, I would also like to thank those joining us for this interview and encourage them to watch the other videos in this series, Feminist Economics 101.
Can I add something?
Yes, of course.
Yes. Another thought I would like to maybe give to my younger self and to the younger people is not to give up and not to be discouraged. Sometimes, depending upon the context you are in, you may even be discouraged from pursuing the feminist route or pursuing a gender analysis. It may be easier in some jurisdictions than in others. So one shouldn't, how should I say, one shouldn't be discouraged. Nobody should discourage you from taking that route in your career if you want to.
That is really important, and yeah, I think it's not giving up, being resilient, keeping on with the research and the gender lens for analysis, and yeah, being part of the community hopefully helps in this resilience, empowering through.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I think this is part of our interview. We will have other interviews with another IAFI members from other young scholars. And also for more information and resources, people can also visit IAFI's website, which is at iafi.org, IAFFE.org. And thank you all.